My sponsor paid me for strange favors, until I realized who he really was. When you're a broke college student, your standards for what counts as too good to be true start to blur. I was sitting in the back corner of the university library when I found his profile. Mr. Hale, age 45, or so the bio said. He looked early 30s at most. Clean-cut, pale-eyed, expensive watch kind of man. The caption beneath his polished smile read, "Looking for a companion." $700 a week. No intimacy. I laughed under my breath. No one pays $700 a week just to talk. Still, the rent notice in my inbox and the unpaid tuition on my portal made the decision for me. I swiped right. We matched immediately. A message popped up almost instantly. "Hey there, sweetheart," I winced. I hated pet names. But $700 was $700, so I swallowed the discomfort. Hey, his name was James Hale, and he said he owned a small importing business. He never specified what kind of importing, and I didn't ask. We chatted casually for a bit. My classes, his travels, small talk that smelled like perfume and half-truths. Then he asked for my payment handle. Minutes later, my phone vibrated. $700 received. I stared at the notification for a full minute, waiting for the punchline that never came. "You still there?" he texted. "Yeah, sorry. What exactly do you want me to do for this?" "Just a few simple favors, Lena." The emoji made my stomach tighten. "What kind of favors?" "First one's easy. Pick up a package for me." That sounded innocent enough. But the rational part of me whispered that people don't hand out $700 for errands. "Where from?" "The post office." "No, I'll send you the address." "Better not through the app." "You got Signal?" I hadn't used Signal in ages, but I installed it. Within seconds, a message appeared with 2 addresses. One for pickup, one for delivery. To his house. "There's a key under the blue flower pot near the door. Let yourself in, drop the box on the living room coffee table. Lock the door once when you go in and again when you leave." I typed "got it" and grabbed my car keys. As I backed out of the driveway, another message came through. "I'm serious, Lena. Lock it both times." It felt unnecessary, almost paranoid. Still, I promised. The pickup address led me to a part of town I'd never seen before. Row after row of houses in various stages of decay. The one I needed looked worse than the rest. Fence half fallen, paint peeling like old bark. A man filled the doorway before I even knocked. Broad shoulders, arms covered in ink, expression unreadable. "You here for Hale's delivery?" he asked. Yes, I managed. "Stay there." I did. My fingers curled around my car keys like they were a weapon. The street was empty. No cars, no neighbors. The man returned carrying a damp, stained cardboard box roughly the size of a shoebox. "Pop your trunk," he said. I obeyed. He placed the box inside gently, almost respectfully. "Tell him Rico says it's done," he added. Then, as I walked around to the driver's side, he called out, "And hey, watch yourself." I pretended not to hear and drove away fast enough to make the tires squeal. Mr. Hale's house was the opposite of that broken neighborhood. An elegant stone estate with pillars, trimmed hedges, and grass greener than anything real. The kind of house you only see in magazines or nightmares. The key was exactly where he'd said. I let myself in, locked the door as instructed, and stood still. The air smelled faintly of cedar and something chemical, sterile. The carpets were deep maroon, the furniture polished wood. Every object looked expensive but unlived in, like a showroom. I set the box on the coffee table and turned to leave. That's when I heard it. A phone ringing somewhere deeper inside. A normal ringtone echoing faintly through the hall. My own phone buzzed. "Don't answer any calls that aren't from Martin." My throat tightened. I followed the sound anyway just to make sure it wasn't mine. The ringing came from a small office near the back. On the desk, an old phone vibrated. The screen flashed. Incoming call. James Hale. I froze. If Hale was calling this line, then whose house was this? I stepped back slowly, leaving the phone unanswered, and walked straight out the door. I locked it once, then again, just like he'd asked. That was the first favor. There were others after that. Driving a car from one city to another and leaving it in a parking lot, exchanging envelopes, delivering briefcases. Nothing illegal on the surface, but everything felt wrong. Every time I told myself I'd stop, another payment arrived, and I convinced myself it was fine. In total, I made more than $3,000 in a month. And then came the strangest favor of all. It was 7 a.m. when my phone buzzed with a new message. "Need you to spend the night at my house. $1,000. Follow the instructions on the dining room table." I stared at the screen, half asleep. I'd never even met Mr. Hale in person. We'd only spoken a few times on the phone. His voice had that calm, confident tone of someone who never asked, only expected. Still, $1,000. I texted, "Okay." By sunset, I was parked once again in front of that perfect stone house, the porch light flickering softly in the twilight. The driveway was empty as always. I let myself in, locked the door twice, and dropped my overnight bag by the couch. The note was exactly where he said it would be, on the dining room table under an empty glass. I picked it up and began to read. "Lock the door when you enter. Only answer calls from Martin. Do not turn on any faucets between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. Do not open the front door after 10 p.m., no matter who it is. If the closet at the end of the hallway is open, sleep in the library. If it's closed, sleep in any bedroom. The gardener comes at midnight." If he knocks on the windows, hide. Leave the television on static all night. Do not forget this. Help yourself to anything in the fridge. I stared at the paper, unsure whether to laugh or leave. It read like the script of a haunted house movie. But then again, so had my life lately. I sighed, put the note back, and told myself I could handle one strange night for $1,000. That night was only the beginning. Safety limits? By the time the sky turned indigo, I had already checked the locks twice. I don't know why. I guess reading that list made me feel watched, like the walls themselves were waiting to see if I'd follow instructions. The house was too quiet. No humming refrigerator, no distant traffic, just silence so thick that my own breathing sounded intrusive. I decided to keep busy. I unpacked my bag, set up a small space in the living room, and tried to convince myself this was easy money. At 8:50 p.m., I brushed my teeth, letting the faucet run for what felt like an unnecessarily dramatic last use before 9. The moment the minute hand touched the 12, I turned the tap off. The silence that followed was instant, complete. The hallway light flickered once. My pulse jumped. Great, I muttered. Old wiring. I checked the closet at the end of the hall. The door stood open, revealing a neatly arranged line of coats and umbrellas. Remembering the note, I took my pillow and blanket to the library, a high-ceilinged room lined with books and a single leather couch under a skylight. It would have been beautiful in daylight. At night, it looked like a museum of forgotten people. I locked the doors just in case and sank onto the couch. I scrolled through my phone for a bit, trying to distract myself, but the Wi-Fi was painfully slow. I typed out a message to Mr. Hale anyway. All settled in. Following your list. No reply. By 9:37 p.m., I'd convinced myself that nothing weird would happen. I even laughed at the paranoia I'd felt earlier. Maybe the rules were just his eccentric way of testing trust. Rich people liked control. It made them feel safe. Then the doorbell rang. I froze. The sound echoed through the halls like it came from inside the house. I checked the time. 10:16 p.m. One of the rules flashed through my mind like a warning sign. Do not open the front door after 10 p.m., no matter who it is. I stayed on the couch, barely breathing. The doorbell rang again, longer this time. A man's voice followed. Hello, police? Open up, miss. My heart pounded. Police? Why would the police be here? I didn't move. Miss Brooks, we just need to ask you a few questions. The voice called again. Open the door or we'll have to force entry. I wanted to believe him. The voice sounded official, steady, firm. But the rules had been specific. I gripped my phone and quietly typed a message to Mr. Hale. Someone's at the door saying they're police. What do I do? No response. The doorbell stopped. Silence stretched for nearly a minute. Then came a new voice, softer, familiar. Lena, it's me. It's James, let me in. My blood ran cold. He sounded calm, even kind. It was unmistakably his voice, the one from the phone calls, smooth and patient. But something was wrong. If it really was him, why was he asking me to open the door? He had a key. The voice called again. Lena, please. I forgot my keys inside. It's freezing out here. I didn't move. I couldn't. Minutes dragged by like hours. The knocking stopped, then came back, harder, faster. Open up! Then silence. The only sound left was my heartbeat. I don't know how long I sat there, 30 minutes, maybe more, staring at the door, expecting it to burst open. But nothing happened. Eventually, exhaustion won. I curled up on the couch, leaving the lamp on and my phone in my hand. The static of my own fear lulled me to sleep. When morning light spilled through the skylight, it took me a second to remember where I was. The world looked normal again, almost embarrassingly so. Sunlight has that effect. It erases the night's monsters and makes you doubt your memory. I gathered my things, relieved that the nightmare was over. But when I walked into the kitchen, I stopped dead. Someone was there. A man stood by the stove, stirring scrambled eggs like it was the most ordinary morning in the world. He looked up and smiled. Good morning. It was him, Mr. Hale, just as he looked in the photos. Sharp suit, kind smile, eyes too calm to be real. Morning, I said, forcing a smile. Coffee? He asked, motioning toward the machine. Sure, we ate in silence. Every bite tasted like cardboard. How was your night? He asked finally. It was fine, I said. Quiet. Good. He smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. You followed the instructions? Every one of them. Excellent. I finished my coffee quickly. I should get going. I've got class. That was a lie, but I needed to leave. Of course. He walked me to my car. Thank you, Lena. You did great. He stood in the driveway as I drove away, smiling, waving, watching until he disappeared in the rearview mirror. When I got home, I unpacked my bag and found the folded sheet of paper, the list of rules. I meant to throw it away, but something made me read it again. And that's when I saw it. The last line. Leave the television on static all night. Do not forget this. My stomach dropped. I hadn't done that. I stared at the words until they blurred together. Then my phone buzzed. A new payment. $1,000 received. Relief came first, then confusion. Maybe it wasn't important. Maybe the rule was just for atmosphere. Another message arrived, this one from him. I'm not in town right now. I'll be gone all week, so no errands until I'm back. Enjoy your weekend. The words hit me like ice, not in town, but I'd just seen him that morning. Cooking breakfast, talking, smiling. Before I could even process it, another text arrived from an unknown number. Did you forget to do something? Attached was a photo. Mr. Hale, standing in front of a television screen glowing with static. For the rest of that morning, I sat on my bed staring at my phone screen, the image still open. Mr. Hale, standing in front of a television filled with static. His head slightly tilted, his expression empty. I told myself it had to be a prank, maybe a way to scare me for forgetting the rule, but deep down I knew that wasn't true. The photo felt wrong. It wasn't staged. It was captured. The lighting was different, the colors muted, like a reflection of something that shouldn't exist. I checked the sender's number again. No name, just digits. I blocked it immediately, but that didn't stop the feeling that someone was watching me. I turned off my phone, paced my apartment for almost an hour, and finally decided to call him, Mr. Hale himself. When he picked up, his voice was calm, cheerful even, like nothing had happened. "Lena," he said, "how are you?" I hesitated. "You said you were out of town." "I am," he replied without missing a beat. "Business trip, why?" "Because someone sent me a picture of you." "A picture?" His tone sharpened slightly. "What kind of picture?" "You were standing in front of a television." "With static?" There was silence on the other end. For a moment I thought the line had dropped. Then he said quietly, "You didn't turn it on, did you?" My heart sank. "No, I didn't. I forgot." He exhaled slowly, like someone trying to control panic. "Lena, listen to me carefully. Whatever happens, don't go back to that house until I tell you it's safe." "What are you talking about?" I demanded. "What is going on in that house?" But he didn't answer. The call ended with a soft click, leaving me with nothing but questions and an ache in my chest that felt like fear growing roots. That evening, I tried to distract myself with work, Netflix, anything that could drown out the echo of his voice. But every shadow in my apartment felt too still, every sound too deliberate. I made tea, then poured it down the sink after realizing I was shaking too hard to hold the cup. I told myself this was paranoia, that maybe he was just playing some psychological game, a test, a control thing. But then around midnight, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time no text. Just a video. Against my better judgment, I pressed play. The footage was grainy, low quality, like it had been filmed from a hidden camera. It showed the living room of Mr. Hale's house, the maroon carpet, the polished wooden furniture, the same coffee table where I had left the package weeks ago. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the camera shifted slightly, like someone breathing behind it. The static from a nearby television flickered faintly, painting the room in pulses of white and gray. Then a figure stepped into frame. My stomach twisted. It was me. I was standing there in the same clothes I had worn the night before, staring at the TV. I looked frozen, blank, like a reflection caught between two worlds. The video ended abruptly, leaving the screen black and my pulse racing. I threw my phone on the couch, trying to convince myself it was fake. It had to be fake. But then there was a knock at the door. Not a gentle knock, 3 sharp, deliberate hits that made the frame shake. I froze. It was almost 1 a.m. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The knocking came again. "Lena," a voice called softly. "It's Martin. Mr. Hale sent me." Martin, the name from the text instructions. My first instinct was relief, but something about the tone was off. Too calm, too patient. "Can you open up?" he asked. "We need to talk." I stood perfectly still, my heart pounding in my ears. "Mr. Hale told me not to let anyone in," I said through the door. There was a pause. Then the voice said something that made my blood run cold. "I know," it whispered. "But he's already inside." I stumbled back, my hands shaking. "What do you mean?" Silence. Then the sound of footsteps moving away from the door, slow and heavy. I grabbed my phone again, trying to call Hale, but the call wouldn't go through. No signal. My Wi-Fi had disconnected. I turned on my mobile data. It wouldn't connect either. My screen flickered once, then froze completely. I left the phone on the counter and backed toward the window. My apartment faced the parking lot below. Everything looked normal. The streetlight humming, a cat darting under a car, the empty sidewalk. Normal. Until I saw him. A man standing perfectly still at the far end of the lot, right under the flickering lamp. He was too far to see clearly, but I knew that outline. The sharp shoulders, the expensive coat, Mr. Hale. I blinked and he was gone. The light flickered again and the space was empty. I stayed up all night with the lights on, too afraid to move. At dawn, I found my phone working again. There was a new message waiting. It was from his number this time. "I told you not to go back there." That was all it said. I stared at it for a long time before replying, "What's happening?" "Who was in the house?" He never answered. Later that day, my bank app pinged, another deposit. Sorry, 500, no message, no instructions. Just silence and money. I should have walked away then, but something in me needed answers. Fear and curiosity are twins, they feed each other. That night, I drove back to the house. I told myself I was just going to look from the street to see if anything seemed off. But when I got there, the gate was open. The house looked the same, perfect, quiet, alive in its stillness. I stepped out of the car and felt the air shift, heavier than it should have been. My phone buzzed again, a single message flashing on screen. "You shouldn't be here." The text came from my own number. The air around the mansion felt heavier than before, as if the entire property had been waiting for me to return. The gate creaked when I pushed it open, the sound cutting through the night like a warning. I left my car running at the edge of the driveway, the headlights washing the front steps in pale light. My hands trembled as I approached the door, remembering the first time I'd walked through it. Everything about the place felt different now. It wasn't just a house, it was aware. The key was still under the flower pot. I hesitated, then picked it up. The metal was ice cold, slick with condensation. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Not rot, not dust. Something sterile, like a hospital that had been closed for years. The maroon carpet muffled my footsteps as I walked into the living room. The television stood in the same corner, dark and silent. I reached for the light switch, but the power seemed dead. Only the faint glow from my phone illuminated the space. I told myself I'd just take a quick look, prove to myself there was nothing wrong here, and leave. But curiosity has its own gravity. It pulls you toward the thing you fear most. I crossed the room and saw the coffee table where I'd left that first box weeks ago. A faint stain still marked the wood, the shape of something once wet that had long dried. My phone buzzed suddenly in my hand. The screen lit up with a notification I didn't recognize. A file transfer request. Play video? I hit cancel instinctively. The notification popped up again. Play video? This time it accepted the command before I could react. The screen filled with static, then with footage that looked eerily familiar. It was the same living room, the same furniture, only the perspective was from the ceiling corner, like a security camera. A timestamp in the corner read tonight's date. I could see myself walking through the door seconds earlier, my flashlight cutting across the room. Then behind me, a shape moved. My heart froze. The figure was faint at first, more shadow than form, standing near the hallway entrance. It didn't walk, it appeared. When I spun around in the video, it vanished. But when I looked over my shoulder in real life, the hallway was empty. My chest tightened. I wanted to leave, but my feet wouldn't move. I pressed pause, then something shifted in the reflection of the television screen. Behind me. I turned just in time to see the hallway light flicker on by itself. A faint sound followed. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming closer. Mr. Hale? My voice cracked. Silence. The sound stopped just at the edge of the living room. Then a whisper came from the dark. You forgot the static. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the coffee table. My phone slipped from my hand and hit the carpet. The voice came again, closer now, low and distorted like it came through an old speaker. You shouldn't have come back. I ran for the door, but it slammed shut before I reached it. The lock clicked into place by itself. I turned, pressing my back against the wood, scanning the room. The air felt charged, humming faintly, as if electricity were crawling through the walls. The television flickered on without warning, filling the room with the white hiss of static. My reflection shimmered across the glass surface, but it wasn't alone. Behind me, in the reflection, someone stood near the hallway, tall, still, face obscured by shadow. My breath came in short bursts. Who are you? I whispered. The figure tilted its head, mimicking my movement perfectly. I stepped sideways. It did too, like a reflection in a mirror that no longer belonged to me. I reached for my phone, but the screen had gone black. A single message appeared across it in bold white text. The house remembers. The static on the TV shifted, showing flashes of movement. Hallways, rooms, the office with a ringing phone. Then one by one, faces appeared in the distortion. Dozens of them. Men, women, all expressionless, their eyes empty. Some faces looked half-faded, others too familiar. One of them looked exactly like me. I screamed, the sound swallowed by the static. I lunged for the remote on the coffee table and hit power, but the television didn't respond. Instead, a whisper came from behind me again, the same voice as before, but clearer now. He's not who you think he is. I turned slowly, expecting to see the figure again, but the space was empty. Only the faint scent of cologne lingered in the air, the same one Mr. Hale had worn the morning he made me breakfast. My chest tightened. My instincts screamed to run, but my body felt rooted to the spot. Somewhere upstairs, something creaked, a door opening, slow and heavy. I picked up my phone, turned on the flashlight, and took a hesitant step toward the staircase. The beam caught the dust swirling in the air, golden against the darkness. I climbed one step, then another, each groan of the wood sounding like a breath. When I reached the landing, I saw it. The closet door at the end of the hall. The same one from the list. It was wide open. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I didn't want to look, but something about the open doorway pulled at me. I raised the flashlight and aimed it toward the closet. Inside, there were coats, shoes, an umbrella stand, and behind them, a second door I hadn't seen before. Narrow, metallic, like an entrance to a maintenance space. I stepped closer and pressed my hand against the cold handle. It turned easily. The door swung open to reveal a narrow corridor lit by a flickering bulb. The walls were lined with shelves, each holding small plastic containers labeled with names and dates. Some of the labels had faded, but one name was unmistakable, Lena Brooks. I backed away, my breath catching in my throat. The containers rattled softly, though I hadn't touched them. The bulb flickered faster, then went out completely. In the dark, the whisper returned, right next to my ear. You're part of the collection now. I ran. Down the hall, down the stairs, straight through the living room. The front door swung open before I reached it, slamming against the wall as cold air rushed in. I didn't stop until I was back in my car, engine roaring, tires screeching against the gravel as I sped away. My phone buzzed on the seat beside me. I didn't look at it until I was miles from the house. One new message. No sender ID. You forgot to turn off the lights. I drove until dawn painted the horizon pale blue, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles went white. Every mile between me and that house felt like another layer of fog lifting from my mind, yet the terror clung to me like static on skin. I didn't stop until I reached the edge of the city, pulling into a 24-hour diner that smelled of burnt coffee and rain-soaked asphalt. The waitress gave me a curious look when I walked in, barefoot, shaking, my eyes wide with exhaustion. I slid into a booth and tried to steady my breathing. My phone lay on the table, face down, vibrating every few minutes with incoming notifications that I refused to check. I knew they were from him, from whoever or whatever was using his number. When I finally gathered enough courage, I flipped the phone over. A dozen missed calls from Mr. Hale. A new message blinked at the top. Lena, please, we need to talk. There's something you have to understand. My thumb hovered over the screen. I didn't want to answer, but curiosity pulled at me like gravity again. I pressed call. The line clicked after one ring. Lena, he said, breathless, anxious. Thank God, you have to listen to me. I can explain everything. His voice sounded human again, almost desperate. I wanted to believe him. What's happening? I whispered. What's inside that house? What did I see? There was silence. Then he said, I told you not to go back. The house reacts to memory. It stores impressions of whoever enters. You woke it up. What do you mean, stores impressions? I asked. Like, recordings? Not recordings, he said. Echoes. I stared out the diner window. The morning was gray, the streets wet from last night's storm. Are you telling me that thing I saw, that figure, was an echo? In a way, he said. When I bought the house years ago, it came with certain rules. I didn't make them. I just learned to live with them. As long as the rules are followed, the echoes stay asleep. You broke one. The television, I said softly. The static. It keeps them contained, he said. White noise masks the residual frequencies. Without it, they can move. They can remember. His words made no sense, and yet they explained everything. The reflections that weren't mine. The whispers. The cold voice that knew my name. So what am I supposed to do now? I asked. Stay away. Don't think about it. Don't dream about it. And if you ever see me again, make sure it's really me. Then the line went dead. I stared at the phone, the diner sounds fading into a dull hum. I replayed his words over and over. Make sure it's really me. I didn't go home that day. I drove to my sister's place 3 towns over and stayed there, pretending everything was fine. But at night, when I tried to sleep, I could feel it. The faint vibration of my phone on the nightstand, like it was breathing. Every few hours, new messages would appear. I'm outside. Please open the door. You forgot to turn off the lights. Each one came from my own number. I stopped checking. I muted notifications. I even changed SIM cards, but the messages kept coming. A week later, my sister woke me up in the middle of the night. Lena, she said, her face pale. There's someone in the driveway. I ran to the window. A black car was parked just beyond the fence, engine off, headlights glowing faintly through the mist. I recognized it instantly. It was the same model Mr. Hale used, the one I'd driven for him during one of the earlier errands. The driver's door opened slowly, and a man stepped out. Tall, sharp-shouldered, wearing a dark coat. His movements were deliberate, too smooth, like someone remembering how to move. He looked up toward the window, straight at me. My sister whispered, "Do you know him?" I couldn't speak. The man smiled, a perfect practice smile, and raised his hand in a small wave. Then he turned, got back into the car, and drove away without a sound. The next morning, I went to the police. I told them everything. Well, everything that could be said without sounding insane. They sent a car to check the address of Mr. Hale's house. When the officer returned, he looked confused. "Miss Brooks," he said, "that house was demolished last year. There's nothing there but an empty lot." I thought he was lying until I drove there myself. He was right. The stone pillars, the maroon carpets, the perfect lawn, all gone. Only a patch of barren earth remained, surrounded by yellow caution tape fluttering in the wind. I got out of the car and stood there, trying to make sense of it. My phone buzzed in my pocket again. A new message. No name, just a single line. "Thank you for keeping the rules." I dropped the phone and stepped back. The earth beneath my feet felt unstable, like it was breathing. I turned and ran to the car, but before I could drive away, I saw something in the rearview mirror. A flicker just behind me. For a fraction of a second, the reflection of the house was there again. Whole, perfect, waiting. I pressed the accelerator and didn't look back. It's been 3 months since that day. The deposit stopped coming. The messages grew less frequent until they disappeared completely. I changed my number, my address, even my major. I tell myself I'm safe now, but sometimes at night, when the world goes quiet, I swear I can still hear it, the faint hum of static somewhere in the distance. Like the house is still alive, still remembering. Sometimes I wonder if Mr. Hale was ever real. Maybe he was just another echo, Another illusion the house created to bring me inside. Maybe I was never his employee. Maybe I was just part of its routine. Another favor, another rule in a list that never ends. Last week, I received one final package in the mail. No return address, no sender. Inside was a small white card with a single sentence printed in neat black letters. Payment received. Service complete. Beneath it lay a silver key, the same one that had been under the blue flower pot the first day we met. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. I keep it in a drawer, but every time I try to throw it away, I can't. Maybe part of me knows the truth. The house doesn't disappear. It waits. And sometimes when I turn on the TV late at night and the channel flickers to static, I can almost see it again, the maroon carpet, the perfect furniture, and a man standing in the doorway, smiling. He always looks directly at the screen as if he knows I'm watching. And every time, right before the picture fades, he lifts his hand in a slow, deliberate wave. I've learned not to wave back.